Hi everyone. Thanks for having me here, and so really encouraged to hear this topic being discussed in a forum such as this one. I'll tell you a little bit about the company I work for to start. So I work in MSD. MSD is one of the world's largest biopharmaceutical companies, and outside of in the US and Canada is simply known as Merck, which is a name that might be more familiar to some of you. I work for the Singapore IT Hub, where our job is to use technology to increase access of medicine for people. I'll be talking about bias, so I thought I should also share my own bias position and where I'm coming from. So despite my name, I'm actually Singaporean, though I spent half my career overseas. And although I work for MNC, I'm very much into the startup ecosystem with these two organizations, Loretta.io and Thrive Ventures. In my day job, I lead the global AI team within the data science. And I do believe that to do a job like this, I find I'm not comfortable unless I understand what my team is doing in a fair amount of detail. So I went back to school a few times during my career. I have 2 bachelors in com science and HR and 2 masters in MBA and analytics. And I'm trying to study AI part-time, but despite all this education, I find it's very difficult. So if any one of you are also studying AI, I feel your pain and I'm out there with you. On the left, I'm also one of the top writers on Quora. I have about 1,000 answers in analytics and data science and artificial intelligence. But that also means that I'm a bit more of a writer than a speaker, and this is not so much my comfort zone, so please be a bit patient with me. Our roadmap for today is very simple. I kind of design it like a thin sandwich. So I have like one slide to just frame the problem, and then I'll talk about AI ethics in 3 parts: the ethics of data, algorithms, and practices. And then I got a 1-slide summary after that. So jumping straight into the way we frame this space. So when we talk about AI governance and ethics, it's a bit of a nebulous concept. So what we try to do is to list out the tangible topics that we cannot attack one at a time. And as we laid them out, we found that they actually sit in a nice spectrum. And all the way on the left is like if you are leading a data science or AI team, you have these things that, the model building, the algorithm, you have these concerns at the team level. Then as you go a bit more to the organization level, like my global boss or the CEO of a company, you have these management issues around AI. And then you go further out, you have this like PDPC level, like country level policy things. And all the way out, you have this like UN level issues. And what's there besides the others are stuff that our team has worked on, but also we see this whole landscape out there of other things which just put under others, which we have not personally interacted with, but they are out there as well. So the red box is what I'm going to talk about today, really more if you are working in a data science team or if your company is using AI in your work. So jumping right into it, I'll start with the ethics of data. And what's the motivation for covering data in a place like this? I actually went to ask one of my interns, do you know how many developers on AI systems actually understand privacy? And so we looked for a proxy to size how big the problem was. And she showed me this. She showed me that she was doing this introduction course, and of over 1 million people who took the course, only 1,400 took the privacy module. So I'm like, well, that's interesting, but may not be a good comparison because people drop off after introduction and they may not have some sample bias and things like that. So I said, why don't you look at the intermediate one? And even then, we're talking about if you take 200 people who's working in data science, maybe 1 in 200, or that's the kind of level we're talking about. So we see a massive disconnect between people who work on these systems and the need and what's coming out from the policy level. And I think this is something we really need to address and really a motivation of what we are talking about today. When we talk about handling data in a careful way, our first response is always like encrypt everything. Just to say that, from a data science perspective, we really have no interest in looking at all this private, personally identifiable information. And to borrow a phrase from Spider-Man, there is this: with great power comes great responsibility. We actually have a data science equivalent, which is with great visibility comes great liability. So we really don't want to be liable for these things. So the moment we see anything remotely sensitive, we encrypt everything. I should also mention that of particular concern is this whole world of computer vision. And whenever our computer vision projects go into production, there's a whole new level of concerns. And there's people who are your colleagues, your acquaintances in the office, suddenly coming up to you and like just randomly talking to you about what about privacy, what about privacy. So in combating that, we have 3 parts to it. One is what you store. Number 2 is what you transfer. And number 3 is what you process. So when we do our computer vision projects in production, one way, as an example of how we process things is, although what you imagine on the video might be on the left, we never store any of that. We process it until only what's on the right remains or something similar to that, and nothing is ever transferred, nothing PII is ever transferred, so that there's no like kind of cybersecurity interception kind of things that could happen along the way. And also, there's also the consent experience, which was brought up in the morning. And one of the team members did some research on how long these like consent legal documents are. And we empathize with these problems because as a medical company, we also have lots of things that we need legal consent for. But what's a better way to restructure the consent experience? What is the solution, not just the problem? And at this point, I actually want to just do a nod to the guys at IMDA and the guys at Facebook as well, because we had a really good workshop by the teams there which really challenged our software engineering team on the way they design for consent. And here are 3 simple ways you can redesign that very inefficient front-loaded consent experience. The first way is, rather than ask for all your data with one tick, you ask for one point of data at the point of use. That's the first one. The second one is, rather than give you access to a data stream like GPS, just allow the user, give the user the option to, on an ad hoc basis, release data one transaction at a time. And the third one is, rather than have this dynamic newsfeed kind of feature, give them the option just to go back to a static page if they prefer to. 3 simple recommendations, which I think goes a long way in bringing the control of data back to the user. So jumping into algorithms, the topic of algorithmic bias is something I actually presented on International Women's Day this year. And this is actually what you see when you punch in CEO into Google images. All political correctness aside, it is predominantly Caucasian, male, and old. And to add insult to injury, besides there being not many females, there's also CEO Barbie there at the bottom. So it's kind of really off. But that alone is not a problem. What is a problem is if you are a female and both of us were to search for the same high-paying job, like head of something or CEO or something, what happens is the jobs shown to you by Google, by the Google ads in orange, those shown to me will be more higher paying than those shown to you. And it's very, very statistically significant. And this is kind of like the essence of algorithmic bias. And I do like this quote that says, the moral status of an algorithm does not negate its effects on society, by the author. So because of compliance requirements, I'm not allowed to go to like project level detail for what we did in the company, but then I'll go to as much detail as I can while preserving I guess what you guys might take away from this talk. So the case study I'll walk through quickly is predictive analytics in HR, and this is the PDPC's AI governance framework. As I go through my slides, you see what we do mapped onto these 4 points. The first one, actually mentioned by our colleagues in DBS, is whether we have a human in the loop. And what this amounts to organizationally is we have these massive few hundred question questionnaires to go through when we look at the risk management of a project. But it boils down to just 1 or 2 simple things. It boils down to what happens if it goes wrong. So to take an example, if you are on social media, you have these news feeds. If the algorithm gives you a wrong recommendation, you scroll, yep, not interested, scroll, done, no harm done. But for all things HR, lots of harm can be done. So for us HR, we really lean onto the human in the loop kind of approach. So when we share this with our internal client, which is our HR business partner, she's like, hey, data scientist, can you just make the model fair for me? Make it fair, make it fair. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by make it fair? If you think there's something suspicious about that, it's because there are actually academically 20 different definitions of fair. And to illustrate this a little bit more, let me give you an example. Imagine you're in an engineering environment where the majority of graduates are male, so the majority of applicants are male. So what then is fair? Do I do demographic parity? It's, oh, I have more male applicants, so I'll let more males through. Is it about meritocracy, where I be gender blind and then just erase all the gender and let me just be meritocratic? Or is it equal opportunity? So it's like, I don't care how many people apply, I'll take 2 of you and 2 of you. And there are many more. There's equal opportunity, there is affirmative action, and all these other definitions as well. So fairness in practice is really an organizational issue and not just a technical problem to solve. And so the PDPC guideline, I will highlight the last 2 words, which is corporate values. And I think the practice of embedding corporate values in code, it will be something that is more and more important as time goes on. I have a few slides on XAI, but I understand a few speakers will be touching on that, so I'm just going to gloss right through. But what I want to dwell on is this, and this is a technical slide, so I won't go through it, but we believe strongly that no one should need to pay to do the right thing. So this is basically a list of open source XAI resources. So if you want to implement explainability, just give this page along with some code, which we have as an appendix at the end of this talk to your data science team, and within a few weeks they should be able to figure it out, implement XAI. So you can focus on the organizational things instead of the technical things. In practice, when we talk about the concept of XAI and transparency, these are 3 real questions that happen in our project, and transparency boils down to questions like this. First question is, oh, the algorithm has got some results, and the person will come back and ask you, number 1, so on what basis did this model work? Question 1. Question 2 is, over the entire population, am I systematically discriminating against a particular group? And question 3, what about me? For this role, for not just how the model works, but how did the model classify me? So these are like 3 different questions that transparency, we felt, boils down to at a practical project level. So moving on, I'll talk about a couple of organizational practices. And the first one is actually an update on this research that I think many of you here would be very familiar with. In 2011, McKinsey had this slightly overdone research where they said that by 2018, I'll be short, say, 150,000 data scientists and 1.5 million analytically literate managers. And that was by 2018, and now it's 2019. So where are we today? Today, I actually put in the date that this study was published, and I looked at Google Trends up till today. And what we found is that since that article, lots of people are interested in data science. But so the blue one is like interest in data science. Not many people are interested in data interpretation, which is the red one. And so, if you believe the research, then the red one should be 10 times the blue one. So we are kind of under-indexed by almost a factor of 50. And so, to be very blunt, lots of people are interested in being data scientists, but the bosses are not interested in understanding what data scientists do. And so the bottleneck, I believe, is not just in data science, but also in executive interpretation of the output of data science. And I think that this is an issue that we need to tackle as we grow in this space. And also, just to put some skin in the game, I'm actually hiring for this position. A year ago, I actually kind of sacrificed one of my engineering FTE to create a full-time AI ethics and governance person. I'm not sure if she's here today. Yep, right there at the back, Tanisha, you just kind of wave your hands. So the very wonderful Tanisha filled this position, and her job is basically from top to bottom, find issues, fix it in code, talk to all these internal compliance ethics departments, educate our internal teams, but stay hands-on as a data scientist, and kind of start absorbing, interpreting both the technical and policy research that's coming in. And I found it, and for better or worse, she has been so successful in her role, so she's heading off to do her MBA soon. So this is a vacancy. If anyone's interested, please come to speak to me. I will say the question mark is there because this intersection of the humanities and data science is something that I find not very common, and I think it's one of these areas that we should look more at. We also attempted to do a Drew Conway Venn diagram for this particular role. And this is not really an academic document. This is more like based on the job that Tanisha does, what that consists of. So she's a mix of, from the bottom, she needs to know data science, she needs to intersect with all these internal departments, but she also needs like some like policy input as well. And I wouldn't go in through all the intersections and all that, but I think here at Innovfest Unbound, we talk a lot about Industry 4.0 jobs. And I think from our perspective, our contribution is, here's one of them. In summary, everything I've spoken of on this talk is on this slide. When I was studying data science, I used all these cheat sheets. So this is a bit like of a cheat sheet for AI governance and ethics if you want to start implementing it in your organizations. And in closing, I want to leave just a couple of thoughts. Firstly, AI ethics is not a purchase, it is a practice. It really requires us to come out of our silos and step into the intersection for things to work out. Number two, when we go home from today, I'll go through my newsfeed and it'll be like everyone is very excited about how fast and how powerful AI is becoming. Not many people are thinking about the direction the AI is going. And AI systems are just optimizing machines, and we need to think hard about the kind of world we want to optimize towards. And finally, when AI comes, it won't just happen to us. I think we are in this space right now that we actually have the opportunity to shape how the future of AI will look like. And I think of this, and in this entire country, if there's one room or where people are the most well placed to do that, it's right here at Innovfest Unbound in this room. So let's work together to get it right. Thank you.
Manage one question. Okay, this gentleman over there.
Hi. So my question is actually regarding demographic equality. So especially for MNC, one of the major problems will be in terms of how the protected categories are defined. So for example, in Singapore, it's only CMIO and binary gender, but if you look at OADC, you're talking about everything from orientation, non-binary genders, tons and tons of other things. So how do you try and implement an AI ethics policy if it's not terribly global in a sense?
Yeah, straight to the easy questions. No. So I think research shows that these things are very country specific. And so although we like to scale our products, there's really not, we really need to also be sensitive to the environment of the country as well as the policy of the company. And so I don't really have like a precise answer, except that it's done something country by country and kind of almost team by team. So ethics is very much a conversation. It's not really a rule that you can kind of smear across the world.
Shall we thank Jason again?